Okay, well, the room's filling up with interesting people we haven't seen in a while. This is nice. Welcome back, everybody, to our July meeting. And today we are providing an update on our work with Visual Studio Code from Stephen, Jeff, and I, mostly Stephen and Jeff. And we'll get just a small update from Nick Crunch, I believe he's in the UK, on his visual programming environment, since we're talking about tools, and answer any kind of support questions or talk about anything of interest to everybody here. Sound like a good plan? Okay. Jeff and Stephen, you guys have been busy at work. Which one of you would like to show what you've been doing or talk about it for a few minutes?
Well,
And if
I can start.
Okay, and so just for agenda, then we'll do you, Visual Studio Code, and then we'll do like intermission support type questions if there are any, and then we'll hear from Nick for a few minutes. So, Jeff, take it away.
Okay, can I screen share?
You sure can.
Okay, there we go. So what you should be looking at now is the quick bite that Ken wrote quite a while back about VSC support for Propeller that Stephen was doing. And I went through it last few days and really revised it quite a bit to bring it up to date, to take a number of materials that Stephen has updated and incorporate those in there. And I kind of simplified the instructions too, so there's fewer steps, and updated the videos. So what you're seeing here is like the first part. I also included Peanut as an option in here to integrate with VSC. And there's these tiny little short, like 18 to 50-second videos showing you each step of the way with the updated information that that Stephen gave to us. So, and I've been through the installation myself about I don't know, 36 times now, maybe more, on virtual machines, just to test it over and over again from a completely virgin state. So like from somebody that's just coming in, they've never had VSC, what do? And I heavily revised the instructions to, make note of certain things that happen along the way, including one I think that Stephen didn't even know about. So that's probably all good stuff. And there's a few issues that we noted that that Stephen's working on resolving. I think he got some of it already taken care of, and a little bug in the latest VSC that maybe he can mention during his presentation, but it's not really a big deal. So anyway, so it's there for you to take a look at. You can grab it from here. I'll post that in the chat, and let us know if there's anything that that you would like to see. That's about all I have to say about it, unless somebody has questions.
Jeff, I have a comment. I just want to say thank you for your effort here, because we asked you late last week and you totally jumped in amidst everything else you have going on and made it happen. I really, really appreciate it, because this quick bite was put up maybe a year and a half ago, and it was getting very outdated and long in the tooth and was not accurate, but people could have figured it out by going to Stephen's GitHub page. But now we have these great little videos, and I walked through it.
You're welcome. I'm glad I had the opportunity to do it. I learned a little bit about it too, that beyond what I had learned when you first made the quick bite. One thing I should have said also was that our intention is to ultimately take this thing and like squish it down, simplify it to, my goal is like 3 steps. That's going to take some additional effort, not just in the quick bite here. This is like we need to do some stuff behind the scenes to make the whole installation and configuration process simpler. So there's likely going to be more revisions of this quick bite as time goes on, as we add more capabilities to make it simple.
And Jeff, how long would you say it takes just to set it up from start to finish?
Oh, it's just, I mean, excluding download time, it's probably like 2.5 minutes, maybe. It's not very long.
Short. I was guessing more like half of an hour. That's good.
Well, maybe it's hard for me to tell because I've done it so many times that, that I know exactly what to do. I suppose if you're reading every step carefully and thinking about it, it might take closer to 20 minutes maybe. But and if there's somebody that's already familiar with VSC, they might be able to do it faster than me.
I guess the main problem is that none of the compiler tools really have like an installer, so you have to like set up the path. Like,
yeah, that's what I would like to see happen. There's a few things that we could possibly do to make it more of a a few clicks process to really get going. Right now, it's there's a few things that are quite a few things that are more manual, and we'd like to simplify that and kind of make it
I
quicker
think I
for
floated
people.
the idea of just making like an ANSYS or something installer for the for FlexSpin at least, but it's just the CLI tools that just puts them somewhere useful. But I don't know. That hasn't really gone anywhere further.
So let's see, any questions here for Jeff then, comments, and then he can decide if he wants to defer to Stephen for those. And the reason we're doing this, we didn't mention that, but the reason we're putting effort into VSC is because the Propeller tool ultimately will time out. It has some closed source components in it, and it's becoming a little bit difficult to maintain, and we're looking for a really long-term solution that can run on anything, so that we could just eventually create a new compiler, and then everybody can use the P2 and P1 anywhere, meaning any operating system. And Jeff, did you you mentioned Peanut, right? And maybe this is a question for Stephen, but Peanut and then FlexProp, right? So Peanut works with VSC on Windows, and FlexProp works on Windows, Mac, and Linux.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, and we have Eric too, in case any questions get asked about FlexProp. He's here as well.
Actually, the next replacement for the Propeller tool is from that new Spin IDE. That thing is gorgeous. Looks like Propeller tool, behaves like a lot alike, and all those little small stuff in there. I like it very much.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's Maka's tool, and if anybody wants to show that off, that's welcome too.
And that one runs also on everything. Very nice work.
Ken, I don't know if you remember, but you scheduled me to give a presentation on spin tools today. I've spent the last week doing that. And, so have you decided you don't want it?
Nope, you're on. We didn't talk much, so I wasn't sure if we are going to do it, but I would like that. So let's do, we'll go to Stephen, and then we'll do Nick for more of the intermission because he has a short thing, and then we'll go to spin tools.
Hey, Ken, before you do that, did you want to have a quick 2-minute look at the OBEX?
We could do that. Okay, so first let's go to Stephen. All these exciting things coming at us all at once.
It's literally 1 or 2 minutes just to squeeze that in before I run off for the hills.
Yeah.
Just quickly screen share.
Okay,
Sorry
right
to
ahead.
take away your moment.
Let's
there.
do it. Has that worked for you, John? What I mentioned? Okay, perfect.
Okay, so hopefully that's sharing now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Let me just navigate the icons out of the way. Get out of the way, get out of the way, get out of the way. Right, OBEX, there we go. So we've now got the site up and running. It's running on a small VPS with about 0.5 gig of memory, so it's a bit slow. And the next step is to move it to the bigger server now, so we can finish off the graphical stuff and make it look pretty. But in terms of it operating now, we kind of got it to a place where the base features that we want to kind of launch with are kind of pretty much there, notwithstanding two things that I think Stephen Moraco and Mr. Colin Fox, I think, mentioned last time. I've got on the list, but otherwise we're kind of ready to go. So yeah, so basically we've got the grid. Main things are I've imported all the stuff that was in GitHub and on the old OBEX. And it's super sortable, so you can click on P2 if you just want P2. You can click on PASM2 if you just want PASM2 stuff. If you just want motor stuff, you can click on motor stuff. And so very quickly you can filter down the table to see what you like. I think we're going to make the table, one line of excerpt and squidge it down so you get more on a page. But again, that's a sort of a styling thing. But once you've filtered through, you can see your option. There's a couple of icons here to view or to edit. If you're the post creator, you can edit your own post. And kind of there you go. If you are, once we get onto the bigger server, let me just reset that. Once you get onto the bigger server, there'll also be another icon here, which is zip download. So if you click on that, it'll immediately download the whole, well, there you go, you see it's done already. It'll download the whole thing on zip. But because that needs to cache, I just need the bigger server to do that. I can't process them all with such tiny memory. But anyway, that feature's there, and that will be for all of them too. And yeah, if you want to look at them, you just click on the, well, it's an eye icon at the moment. That might change, but and oh, it's ever so slow, but it is loading the viewing page eventually. There you go. So yeah, you get sort of automated table of contents. The tags and stuff are repeated at the top. The actual author's name comes in where it's available. If you actually add your own, once you register on the site, of course, and you add your own post directly on the new site, your author name will come up automatically. And later on, I can link old posts across to people who are still active now, but instead of having archiver. And yeah, so it's sort of all automatically there. The downloads are also available piece by piece. And you can also, I've made it now so you can click on them and get a live preview. Again, excuse the speed. Watch the, but it will come up with a live preview. There you go. So it now recognizes all of the parallax file extensions, and it will let you see individually in text, or you can download the whole folder as a zip from here or from the table. Yeah, so it's kind of.
I think there must be an opportunity there to use the parallax web font for the code view.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll do something with the fonts. This is all sort of stock fonts at the minute, but that's basically the next phase now is to stick it onto the bigger server so we can, do the layout, prettification, and yeah, it's actually quite interesting. Something I realized that importing the P2 stuff, mainly the newer stuff that was created on GitHub, is a bit of a nightmare because there's no consistency in the way people have used their tags. So it's much harder to import the stuff that was previously created on the old system OBEX and dumped into GitHub, and now I've ported it back again. At least there was consistency in the way the tags were presented. So that's quite an interesting thing. But anyway, those little things we'll just clean up later.
Hey, Michael.
Yep.
Maybe we could have like a list of tags which are kind of common so that people they'll be able to use common names for things without using some synonym that doesn't match the search.
Yeah, there's a tag thing, and yeah, I was thinking something like that as well. We should have like a tag. I've used junk, which isn't great, but when you create your own OBEX, you can write tags in. And I was kind of thinking that it would be nice to
like a preferred list, stuff that is going to be common.
Yeah, I was thinking that when you click on here, it would be quite nice if a link comes up and you can actually, as you type, start to see. I mean, obviously, this is just the stupid stuff I've been typing whilst testing it, but it would be nice if in the tag box it popped up with a list. But yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Popcorn. Anyway, yeah, so there you go. So that's basically the OBEX. I think you saw the form entry thing last time, but the very last thing to mention is what, as we're on that page now, that you just add a new, anyone can add a new OBEX entry once you've registered. You type in the object name, optional excerpt if you want. If not, the code will generate that automatically from the description. You just click on the processor, change your license if you want to, choose whatever languages you're using, choose your categories, one or more. This is Markdown, so you can use Markdown text there and preview it if you want to. I'm going to have before it goes live a little thing here, which is like a preset kind of layout of what would be good for people to use. So this is like heading 1, and then this is like pins, whatever it might be. We'll just put something in here so there's something that people can sort of use. And you just upload your files here, whatever you want to add, or you can add a folder or files. Add tags if you want to, submit, done. So
Michael, question for you.
Yep.
When you say upload and you say folder, can it also take a zip and just explode the zip?
Yeah, you can upload a well, it won't explode the zip, but it'll if you upload a zip, it will be uploaded as a zip.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not going to explode the zip. I guess we could do that, but we're just adding more complexity.
Yeah, the issue for me is then if we uploaded zips, which I tend to have things as single files after I build them, then you wouldn't be able to show the individual files for download, right?
Yeah, the way it works is that it assumes that you're going to upload the files individually. I mean, you can just add an entire folder at once, or individual files as you wish, but it assumes that you're uploading the unzipped so that it can have the full functionality of the preview and also then later on zip download. So it zips it for you for download. But
when we're working with Visual Studio and sometimes other tools, the tools themselves leave special hidden folders. Git will leave .git star folders. You have .vs code folders. If we choose folder, are you uploading those dot folders too?
At the moment, I'm uploading everything apart from double dot. Single dot and double dot. Yeah.
Right. So you might avoid dot prefixes as a standard. The problem with uploading folders also, when you're on a Mac, you get Mac Finder acceleration directories as well, called DS something.
Yeah, the .ds. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, we could add excludes later on if if that's
so
preferred.
That's why I work in zips, because I then remove all that stuff from the zips that represent the package. And so the zips now are strictly just the code.
I mean, I usually have like a bunch of just garbage in my project directories.
Oh yeah, of course.
Well, let's come back to that later. It's definitely something to put a pin in. I'll make a note on the list of all the other things that we noted from last time. And yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no reason at all why you couldn't have filters on that. That's kind of a built-in function of this plugin. So yeah, that's
of course,
that's quite possible. That's quite easy to do.
Okay, so just thinking out loud to you, so we can head up the issues.
No, it's good to catch thoughts as they come along, because it's the sort of thing that gets easily missed otherwise. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so there we go. So it was just really just to kind of just sort of say that there's it's bumbling along in the background. We kind of put it together a bit more this week, and as I say, we're just kind of at that stage now. We just need to get it onto a bigger server so it can actually function, and then we'll tidy up the graphics and get it launched. Really, it'd be nice to have it up and running for everyone to use in a week or two. We'll see how we go, and then get back onto the next live forum, I guess, to officially launch it, I guess, if not before. So Michael, there you go.
Looking really good. Thank you.
Yeah, good job, Michael. I could hear the crowd cheering.
Can, if you want, I can futz around with it and sort of pre-test it. I'm good at that sort of thing. Just finding stupid
Yeah,
Big
no,
newsletter.
I very much appreciate that. Yeah, I'll get it shared to the forum before the next live forum,
That's quality.
so you can get in and play with it. That'd be cool. Yeah.
Is that URL you were using publicly accessible?
No, it's not. I've already tried.
Yeah.
Hacker.
Yeah, it's locked only to my IP address at the minute, but it's yeah. We can I'll speak to Jeff. I'll harass Jeff Martin in the next day or so, and we'll sort out a parallax URL and get it live so that it's accessible.
Perfect. Wow. Okay. Big progress. Long time waiting. Some of us will be happy, some won't, but it does meet the basic requirements we set out.
Yeah, and the important thing is we're just trying to, get the thing online, not just drag it out as a year's project. We just want to get the thing online. Once it's online, it's much easier to, fine tune little things that people don't like. And very happy to add stuff to it here and there. Always open to that. But I just want to get something started.
We'll go out and collect up some of the gems that have been presented here and on Quick Bites and get them posted.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I've been collecting lots of stuff through the forum in the last few months that people have been pasting little juicy snippets, and I've got a whole document list of stuff that I want to then start to add to this, because it won't just be the OBEX. There's also another page of document library, and I won't show that now because we don't have the time, but there's lots of resources that are going to be there as well, and it's stuff that it'll slowly evolve, and also people will be able to log in and contribute to that as well in a similar way. There'll be a templated form. You can just add new sort of blog document. So if people want to share, working code snippets or examples, they'll be able to do that in the same way. So hopefully, eventually, it'll be a good hub for all that kind of information in an ordered, sorted way, rather than how it is now. As Propellers started out, it's all been all over the place. So yeah, it's bringing it all together.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So you're in Europe. You can go to bed now.
Yep, I'm off.
And we're going to
feed
keep
the dogs.
woof woof. We're going to keep Nick here for a while. We're going to keep him up for a few more minutes. So let's go back then to Stephen to wrap up the VSC from his perspective. And can you also answer if it does P1 and P2 code and whatever you're talking about, Stephen?
Sure, be glad to.
All right.
Okay, so you just saw from Jeff the Windows installation. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Good. Okay. You just saw the Windows installation. Here is the current status, features supported of the Visual Studio Code now. With the last releases over the past couple of days, we added full P1 parity, feature parity for everything that we've been doing. We now have generation of the document. You saw that last time. Dot comment generation you've seen in the videos. I don't know how much you guys want to see. I put out a couple of videos in the forum, so I'm tempted not to repeat that since the videos are there. You let me know if you want me to do otherwise. But so anyway, here's our full support at this time. Now, this has been a couple kind of, in a sense, rapid/frantic releases of some really large feature set things. We've had the syntax and semantic highlighting, but now as you hover over things, you get, and I'll show you some of that, you get information about what you're hovering over. And I've been increasing the P2 side of that, and we have all the basic spin for P1 as well. We also now have signature help, which is the latest release this week. Jeff was talking about installation on Windows. That's this page. We now have a dedicated page for installation on macOS using FlexSpin. And I also split out from this the Raspberry Pi installation for using FlexSpin as well. So if you want to install VS Code on your machine and get it working with Spin, and you want to program the Propeller from USB connected something, you can do that from Raspberry Pi or Ubuntu, from macOS or from Windows. And on Windows, as Jeff mentioned, you have the choice of using Peanut command line or FlexSpin, FlexProp. So that's all available. This one has been marked as don't bother, go to these three, and same thing with this one. So if you end up hitting something that looks like this at the top of it, it's because we've obsoleted them. So no big deal there. Let's see, what else do I want to show you? So that's the features. We run on all the platforms. Let's switch over to, let me shut the share down on this one. Stop share, and I'll go back to sharing now. I mentioned that there are a couple features that we can support in Visual Studio. And so the roadmap is, this is madness. So we have all sorts of different features that we can provide behind Visual Studio. And that is essentially this list. I basically went through and picked up things that are file wide and tried to do some of those first. And that's what we're seeing here with, we have Hover Provider now, and we have Signature Help Provider. There are other features we can provide, and the way I provided those to kind of blend in some of the other things. But you can expect that over time, I'm going to be adding more of these capabilities. However, the project file wide, you're sitting in a folder, and it's a collection of spin files, one of which is your top level file, which you compile and then build the binary from. And it includes all the other files. Visual Studio Code, once I add the language server behind it, we'll be able to handle that whole project structure, and highlighting and coloring and everything else will be with validation of things that actually exist in the other files. And so Ada, for instance, has been asking when am I going to get go-to definition and stuff like this. That's all going to come once we have the project wide ability. Because when you say go to the definition of this method, or give me the documentation details about this method, I'll be able to do that by looking into the other files as soon as we have that. So longer term, that's where we're going. That may be the very next thing I work on. That's going to be a 3 or 4 week downtime for me while I go heads down and actually build that thing. It's not going to be easy, but that's the next major extension. So stopping that, let's now just give you a quick, I don't want to go detailed because you have the videos, but I'm just going to give you a quick view of some of the things we've got now. So you should be able to see my Visual Studio looking at some code. And Copilot can't, well, okay, great, thank you. I run with GitHub Copilot, so it's kind of entertaining. This is the hover help. And so you can see as you hover over things, it's telling you how does WaitMS work? What is the debug statement? What is e-ink display? Well, that's an instance of the e-ink spin object. Over here, same things, right? It's telling you what type of object it is as well. So these are constants. This is referencing a constant from, well, is it even going to show us? Oh, I love this. Every now and then I get something that just doesn't hover correctly. And so every time I do this, it's a demo. Things don't work in demos as you expect, right? Every time I do this, I lose something that's not working. And so I will go back and make sure all these are working as my next cleanup releases before I go further. Anyway, that's what hover is. Signature help. There's no help for this guy. Interesting. Where is he located? Is he in this file? If he is, we've got hope. And I have stuff over my screen. He's in this file. And so there's no help for it. You hover over it, you get nothing. But if you do something like this, oh, that's interesting. So what I did was I pressed Control-C. And so now you can see it's a custom method and it displays the region. And so when I go back up here now, I actually do get the built-in help for that method pulled from the file. What's going to be different is once we have the language server, this method can live in other spin files and it'll pull this information out of the other spin files. So we have that. So you can see right here, it's a method in e-ink display, but I can't give you any more details because that's out in the other file. Does that all make sense so far? Okay. And so the other thing is, does that even have, do I have anything here with parameters? Probably not. Probably not. Let's go somewhere else. Oh, let's see. We were talking about limit. Really? Are you going to work here? Demo again. Okay. One of the issues Jeff mentioned is when I go to build, we have a failure in the latest Visual Studio. I pressed the command that should run compile P2, and instead it's putting up a list of the different compile options. That is a defect right now in the current Visual Studio code, as far as I can tell. It used to work directly by invoking it. And so here you can see I've just compiled it using FlexBin, and you can see in my bottom terminal that FlexBin just compiled that just fine. Fun things about this. If I do the same thing, hardly having to answer that thing again. Now you'll see that the errors from FlexBin are actually projected up here to the line. That's because I have, it's automatically processing this. It'll do this with Peanut or FlexBin. Automatically processes the errors and just marks the lines with the error message. So as you're building, compiling, it's going to be reflected in your source code where the problems are. And then you just go ahead and fix them and recompile. I hate this pop-up. It should have just done it automatically. And the errors go away. So just so you know, you've got interactive error highlighting just by adding the extensions. That's Code Lens, I believe, that provides the error forwarding back up to the code. And all of which extensions can be used or are suggested to be used with our Spin2 extension are mentioned on the GitHub web pages. So I think that pretty much is the description we need. The other, oh, why did I come here? Aha, that's why. Oh yeah, let's do really bad English. I'm being fun to watch typing. Again, I'm putting documentation that's not here. You notice I pressed Control-C just to get this in here. And if I'm documenting for other people to read, I'm going to fill in why are these local variables, how are they used, and things like this. You'll notice this is both bold dot comments and non-dot comments. That's because the dot comments are used in the hover help. And so when you come back up here now, I'm just going to pick a strange place to do this. Damaging the code as I do it, but hey, it's a demo. What can I say? So now the newest feature is really, I'm being random on my keyboard. Sorry about this. This is why we do videos, so I don't have to do this live. Where am I? I'm moving too fast to see it. There we are. Is it this one? Not that one. Oh my gosh, what was it just called? That's a good function for outline, isn't it? Sorry about the delays here. We said fill screen. There we are. So now what you get is hover help that actually reminds you which parameter you're typing next. And if there are multiple parameters after you fill it in and type the comment, it'll switch to the next parameter and remind you as you go. So that's the latest addition, is signature help. And you can see how the built-in documentation helps with that. In the case of something that doesn't have parameter documentation, you still get the help, but it'll remind you that there is no parameter comment. And so I can now say, I don't know what I called it. Yeah, that's it. And so I switch to the second parameter and it tells me what am I looking for here. And so probably something like that. So I attach the ink display on 0 to 15 and that. And so you can see how that signature help is actually helping you remember what to be typed in, what needs to be typed in. Okay, I'm going to make sure that's not saved. Thank you. Don't save. And make sure that's away. And I'm going to end my demo there. Any questions? We're a silent group.
It looks
When
really
will we
good.
get line continuations that work?
Oh my gosh, yes, I know. We'll get there. You're going to make me really maddeningly go for a full parser. But yes, you're right. Line continuations, the new syntax is not fully supported yet. That's a known issue. Also,
Not fully
the
supported,
object-
he means the entire parser breaks down in its present.
Okay, yep. And we also have some of the constant override features where you declare an object and you override some of the constants coming from that object. Some of that is not highlighted correctly as well. So I'm still catching up with some of the new language changes. I'm deferring that kind of work until I get the parser in the language server, and then I can make a once and final change and support the full language. So Ada, continue to keep me honest. That's good.
Do you have to have error lens added in order to get that error message right there in the code on the exact line?
That's probably true because that's a feature, but maybe not. I use error lens because I run lots of different languages. So FlexBin users, when you're writing in C, when you're writing in BASIC, the errors are parsed, and if your language definition for BASIC and C supports handling those errors, they'll automatically be brought up into the code as well. And so this Visual Studio Code is going to work really well across all the languages supported by FlexBin. And so yes, probably error lens is required to do that. I think it's the one responsible for bringing it into the code and placing it. And then how we parse that, you'll notice the error prefix is not being brought up. That's probably something I did in the parse specification in the task file. The parse definition is in the task.json file that we cut and paste when we first set up. And let's say one more thing about that. The reason why initial setup is a little bit longer is because you're doing the initial key bindings for compilation, and the key bindings tie to the tasks described in the tasks file. And so you're putting a user-centric tasks file in place too. Once that's done, as you start new projects, the only thing you're going to do for each new project is put in a little 3-line settings.json file in the local VS Code directory within the folder for your project. And that identifies the top level file. The tasks file then uses that value to understand when you're flashing or downloading to RAM, where to start compiling from for that project. It identifies the top level file by name. So that's the only piece that's unique to each of the projects. Everything else is.
I've never used that setup. Does it have any way of actually setting the compiler flags per project? Because if not, it's that's kind of a recipe for disaster.
You care about that more because you're using FlexBin and a richer set of compiler flags. Yes, we should.
I added the compiler flags for my own enjoyment. I just add more.
Yes, we really should. Let me work with you on getting suggestions for how to do that. Yes, I agree. We really should do that. There are going to be things that are going to be you want to, and the interesting part of that is that's actually going to be I can see cases where it's going to be file specific or project specific, and it could also be user preferred, depending on the scope of the flag. And so we probably need a way to handle this. Traditional development environments do. And so I would expect that over time, we will be adding that. And so, yeah, if you have ideas for how you'd like to see it, I certainly have ideas for how it can be done. Certainly, if it's project wide, we just do it in the settings.json file in the local directory. And then we pick those, if the settings exist, we use those on the compile lines. And so that's going to be a pretty easy thing to do project-wide. File-wide, we can use the same technique just by adding more entries in that same file.
Yeah, I guess project wide is sufficient for most things, because most things don't meet the sort of crazy flags and multiple different flags for different files, and then they get combined together.
Right. Now,
Look in the NeoUnit repository if you ever want to see an awful build script with random magic numbers in it.
yeah, exactly. So that's the other thought. It's traditionally this is makefile content or CMakeFile content. And so maybe we start thinking about, we put a build description file alongside our project if we get more advanced. And if that file exists, we pull those settings. It identifies what settings to use by file or whole project. And maybe we just pull from that as we load the project.
I usually just use a build.sh. The stuff goes quick enough that it takes longer to download it than actually compile it.
Sure. So yeah, well, we've got lots of ideas, lots of ways we can handle this. I don't know, maybe it's worthwhile Eric and Ada and I talking and coming up with a way that's necessary to help all of the tools at the same time. And so we'll see. Good ideas, Ada, as always.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
Okay.
Yeah, any other questions? I cut you off there. Anybody? We can come back to this too. Okay, perfect.
What about debugging? Is it possible to use the graphical debug windows together with Visual Studio?
Those are all Windows support. Those are all Windows only tools at this point.
But it's working for me. I use the Stephen's Visual Studio setup, and we shell out to Peanut to compile the code, and that invokes the debug windows just fine. So if you're running on Windows, I think the answer is yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chip. User testimonial.
Cool. Okay, and also we can support Stephen's work on his Patreon page. We really need to do that because he's really largely a volunteer. He does this for fun, but we got to give him some coffee money and some Raspberry Pi money and whatever else. So I just put his link there. You can give him $10. I have to go update my Parallax credit card there because you've not been getting paid for months from me, but you never complain. So sorry. Thank you. And then also this is possible because FlexSpin from Eric. So support Eric at the same time. And I put his link in there. So good job, gentlemen. Next up, before we go to Johnny Mac, we have Nick Crunch here, and he's staying up late for us. The reason I invited him over today is because there was an article that appeared online, and he's been here before sharing his no-code programming language using visual diagrams. And I think he's really just immersed in the coding side of things, but I asked him just for a brief update. And here's the article that several of us saw, put in the chat. So Nick, are you with us?
Oh, have we got an echo now?
Thanks for staying up late. Yep.
Can you hear me?
It's kind of broken.
Is it? Hang on 1 second.
That's better. I thought that picture behind you was a T-Rex biting your kid's hand off. And I had to zoom in on it and see. It's like the Matrix or something.
That's
right?
Matrix.
It is. It's the painting I did some years ago.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Can I switch screens here? So
Yeah, you can.
Let's except it's not doing it. Isn't that just typical? Bear with me. I had to set this machine up specifically for the Zoom session because my development machine runs Linux with GTK, and Zoom doesn't like it at all. That one.
I don't know, it works for me.
Yeah, it looks like you've got it now.
Okay. So for those that saw my last presentation, this is probably what you saw. This is screenshot taken from my old Windows program, written quite some time ago, V5. It's effectively flow programming. It's not a state machine.
Hey, Nick, your audio
Yes.
seems to be breaking up badly. Do other people hear it the same way I am?
Yeah, Chip, you're right.
Maybe turn your video off, Nick, so
For the
you can
bandwidth that we can
bandwidth
serve.
issue.
Your camera, that's right.
Is that better? Is that any better? Just turn the video off.
It's a little bit better.
Alternatively, can I switch? I can't alter. Hang on a second. No, I can't. I'll just have to try the best I can. I'll try and speak up a bit. Would that help? Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's a flow-based programming system that effectively starts on the left-hand side of the screen. The small dot here is the entry point for this particular function, and the process travels from left to right, going through each process one at a time until it finishes at the end. Now, in certain situations where parallel processing is possible, you can actually break up and run multiple threads without the programmer having to know anything about it. So on something like the P2, which has 8 cores, you can quite happily design a program, and wherever it is possible, the P2 or the Connects kernel will automatically break up each function and each part of the function to run on different core. So let me get out of this. Can I go? Right.
I had to make my screen bigger, then I could see it better.
Okay. So I'll flick through these. As I say, these are all diagrams from before. I've only put a few here up. I'm now rewriting the program in Java. So it'll run on Windows, it'll run on Mac and Linux. And the Connects kernel itself is dependent upon the microarchitecture you're using, but the programs you create using this program, this development system, are machine independent. So you can take the same code and drop it into any microcontroller that's running the Connects kernel, and it will run. That's the process. That's the idea. How do I get out of this screen share business? Okay. Let me out. Can anyone tell me how to get out of screen share?
Green button on the
Hello?
bottom, stop sharing.
Ah. Stop here. Come on. Screen is so slow.
There you go.
Oh, yes, it's going slowly. It's happening. I've had a couple of little setbacks over the last couple of years, but it's progressing. As I say, I'm currently writing the development suite, which is where the programs are designed. I've also incorporated some changes so that it's a little bit more intuitive, and it doesn't actually cater for every possible thing that the Connect system can cope with. Instead, it's a sort of simplified set that allows people to get used to the idea, and later I will add the extra complexity if people get used to the whole idea. But there's things that Connect can do and on the kernel level that they are a bit strange, and I try to incorporate those into the development software in the past, and I'm removing all that to make it simpler. So I think that's probably where I'm up to. I haven't got a propeller. I'm currently developing it on these.
Okay, you need a propeller chip. So send me a message and I'll get you some
Oh.
hardware.
That'd be cool. Brilliant. I think that's it, really. That's my update. Is there any
Cool.
questions?
I wish the audio was better because I think we only heard about half of what you said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it spends plenty of bandwidth on video, but it won't get the audio through.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about that. As I say, I set this machine up specifically to do this session, and it's a bit slow. And yeah, I've been having a few problems with it. I've had to install Linux about 4 times on this machine just to make it work.
Hey, well, thanks for sharing. And yeah, keep going, Nick. It looks like 2 years ago, it was a long time ago, and here you are still working on it.
Persistence.
And Nick, if you can get the audio problem diagnosed, come back as soon as you can, because there's a lot of stuff we could probably ask you about, but it's hard when the audio is not working.
I wonder if I switch my mic. I can try. Let me see whether I can. Is that any better?
Seems to be.
I have now just switched the microphone over to the one on the webcam. So this.
Okay. Since you have a better
that's
audio,
way
let's
better.
see. Any
That's way better.
questions? Let's see if any questions for Nick then.
I have a question.
All right, Chip.
What tool did you use to develop this on so far? Wait a minute.
What context?
You have not had a propeller chip, is that right?
No.
That board you showed was something else.
It was an ESP32.
Okay, gotcha.
I also have a Raspberry Pi Pico clone.
That's a.
And I just which I haven't looked at it. I looked at it myself. An OBEX64.
Well, we need to get that current. So Nick, send me a message with your shipping address and we'll get you some proper tools.
Yeah, we'll get you a P2 Edge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Then we could, then you can really test it. Well, thanks a lot. I mean, the only more interesting no hardware programming story I've seen is when I circulated Chip recently in the office with Jeff from an individual who's been incarcerated for many years, and he started learning about the P1 and writing assembly for it. And he got access to data sheets and they gave him data sheets, and he spent all this time studying and learning and writing code without a chip for like 5 years. That's pretty far out.
Yeah. I have a question. I know that there's a C compiler for P2. Has anyone actually compiled real free archives on it?
All we heard was C compilers, so the closest person answering that would be Eric Smith.
Sorry. Has anyone ported free RTOS?
Not that I know of. No, I don't think anyone's ported free RTOS yet.
All right. So now we'll switch over to Johnny Mac. Johnny Mac, are you with us? Before we start. Yeah, thank you again, Nick. John, I want to thank you for your patience too. Because we had you on the agenda, you are on the agenda, and a few things slipped me in, so I didn't know what we had going on today. But I'm glad you're here, and you're going to talk about spin tools, which is an alternative to the Propeller tool from Parallax.
Yeah, you ready?
Awesome.
Can you hear?
We're more than ready. You sound great.
Okay, here. Let me turn off my fan so it doesn't make extra noise. Okay, I'll go ahead and share my screen. So I'm doing this presentation because it is late in Europe and Marco probably isn't a night owl like many people are. So the Spin Tools IDE has been around for a little more than a year in the forums, kind of quiet, but it's getting really nice. It's written by Marco Macaferi. You know him from the forums as Maca. He's in Italy. He has a company called macasoft.com. And this is some of his particulars. He is a professional developer and a maker like many of us, specializes in C and C++ and Java. And Eclipse SWT is standard widgets tool set, which is what he used to develop spin tools. He likes retro computers. There's a lot of people that are into that. As I said, he's a long-term forums member. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow through this PowerPoint really quickly, and then we'll do, bits of live demo. This is really easy. And in the context of things, if you think about it, Spin Tools IDE fits in between Propeller tool and with what Stephen is doing, with VSC. Because it's kind of a single unit program. It does run on all three operating systems. You do have to have Java installed, but many people already do that. It's open source already. In fact, there was one of the users that's been participating in the forum thread. He forked it and added his own features to a couple of things. In fact, Marco took one of those things and put it into the main development piece. So it's really easy to install because it's just unzip a file wherever you want it and point to it and go. I'm a Windows user, but I spun up a Linux VM and I didn't have any troubles, even though I'm not a regular Linux user, getting it working in Linux as well. There are Mac users that are using it. So it has the really friendly Southern comfort, make you feel good, easy to use personality of Propeller tool. And then there's some additional features. Has a toolbar. I like that because it saves a few clicks from time to time. It has a built-in, I see Jeff smiling. He knows how many times I've asked him for that. Has an outline view. One of the nice things, it has a strip, and I'll demonstrate this, called annotations and errors, which show you warnings and where your errors are in the program. Stephen had some really cool high-tech names for what Marco just calls code assist. So you can hover over things and it will give you information, so long as, like Stephen pointed out, if you have document comments, then it will use those. And although if it's a keyword that's a spin keyword that Parallax had predefined, Marco has all that stuff built in. And, Marco has been really good with the support. I can say that everything I've asked for, with a couple of exceptions, just because they take some time, he's added to the program, and that seems to be the case. People that are actually using it and advocating for a feature or showing where they can should demonstrate a bug and it's reproducible, Marco has been very good at squaring those away. So this is what it looks like on my Linux VM. But as you can tell, it kind of looks like Propeller tool, even has the same color set if you run it in the standard mode. Here's Windows, or sorry, this is Mac. And as you can tell, by Mac has a little different use of these menu things. But the SWT toolkit takes care of that. And then this is me running on Windows. So the screen has a bunch of sections to it, so we'll just go through those really quickly. Toolbar, no drama there. This is called the object browser. Just like in Propeller Tool, it shows you the architecture of your program. File browser, again, like in Propeller Tool, the difference is you can tell it what to show in here. So you don't have to go through your entire directory tree to find something. You can isolate that, and I'll show you that in a second. This is the editor window. Now I'm overlaying off, of course, the terminal too, but this is the editor window. Oops, went the wrong way. So this strip here, you can't really see anything in it yet, but right adjacent to the thumbnail for the editor window is where you'll see either yellow lines or red lines or a combination or none. Yellow lines are warnings. So if you hover over it, it'll tell you what's going on. If you click on it, it'll take you to the line. Same thing with red lines, which are errors and won't let you download. This is the outline view. As Stephen pointed out in his demonstration, very, very convenient to have. It shows you what's going on and allows you to navigate through the project really easily. And terminal, the terminal, I have it running in PST mode. It has ANSI and TTY modes as well, I think. I've only ever tried it in PST mode. I was hoping today to do a colorful demo in ANSI mode, but my ANSI color codes that I've used with PuTTY successfully weren't working. So I needed to chat with Marco about that, but it works perfectly in PST mode. And then the debug console. So across all operating systems, you can do basic P2 debug with this. It doesn't, since it's not connected to Peanut, it's not pulling up the parallax debug window. It's intercepting, I'm assuming, the serial data coming out of the debug stream, and it puts it into a standard text widget, which is nice because you can scroll back and forth. Sometimes I find when I'm working inside Propeller Tool, I have to expand the debug window and then run again so I can see everything that I might want to see. So this is just going out to a text window. So it's one of the slides that said it's easy to set up. This is in the preferences window. It's a multi-pane thing. Now, unlike Propeller Tool, you can't get directly to preferences. In Propeller Tool, F5 will take you to preferences. In Spin Tools, Marco uses F5 to refresh the editor windows. There's a lot of hotkeys that are common to browsers and other things, and Marco adopts those kind of context. So this is the general look and feel, and Marco recently added themes. Now I was showing it in the standard normal theme with the parallax thing, but it has a dark mode and a light mode, etc. You can disable specific things, the toolbar, the object browser, and file browser if you want. And then if you're using the file browser, this tells you what you want to see, kind of the roots, so that it's easier to navigate through files. This is the debug console. So you can select the font, how long you want it. And like with Propeller Tool, you can write it to a timestamped file so that you can save it for later analysis. Here's the editor. Again, select the font. If you use the parallax font, it will correctly open the older files that use the interesting parallax schematic characters and all that stuff Jeff made. So that works if you use the parallax font. Again, showing line numbers, the indentation line, so you can turn those on and off. Most of us like them on. You can also change the size, so you can make them a little less intrusive by changing the line. This is the line thickness for the indentation things. Again, outline and the sections background. I think the only person I've ever heard doesn't like the color background is Michael Summer. And if I'm wrong about that, Mike, forgive me, but you can turn that off if you want, and you just get a plain background. Now I did notice, and I'll show you, if you're using the themes, like the dark theme, then it will be you don't have those colors. It's just a dark theme. We have tab stops, just like in Propeller Tool. This I particularly like because everybody knows what a maniac I am about formatting. And so this allows me to control that. Here's where we set up the spin 1 related stuff. So the spin tools allows you to have separate libraries for the P1 and the P2 if you like. I'm pointing it to the default Propeller tool library, but you can point it anywhere you want. And when you download the project, it comes with libraries. And Marco has separated them out. Say P1 and P2 as separate libraries. You can, just like in Propeller tool, you can have your own template, something again I really like. And you can also turn on case sensitivity. Windows doesn't care. Windows is not case sensitive, but I'm pretty sure Linux is, and maybe Mac as well. So you can turn that on to save some troubles. Get the same kind of thing for spin 2, but it also has an option for using the clock setter if you're doing just a PASM program. And finally, the terminal. Again, you're just setting the font and whether you want a line input and to do the local echo. So really, really easy stuff. This is very beginner friendly. Some of the things that differentiate it is that it's always compiling. So I think Visual Studio does this. So there is no F10 compile. Oh, sorry, there's no F9 compile in this. It's just constantly compiling. So if you type in a code, if you type in a line of code and it has errors, kind of like what Stephen was demonstrating, right away it'll show you have a problem. If you do have one. And this is a question I was going to ask Chip. This is a point Marco makes, but when constants are calculated with 64 bits, but then truncated to 32, does Propeller tool do the same thing?
No, it's pretty much just 32 bits. So
Okay.
you won't get those rollover accountings that you might have had with 64 bits. So I guess positive and negative could switch place in some cases.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's a good point. He does have in there a source code reformatter. It's kind of really at the beginning and doesn't, in my opinion, work very well now because it's not configurable, but this is something Marco has on his list so that you can set up. For instance, it defaults to 4 spaces for an indent. I prefer 2 for spin, and it does some other things that I don't like. So I don't use that, but it's there. Code Assist, which Stephen had some cool names for, the hover over and I don't remember the other thing, but this will show you the parameters of your methods. Again, if you're using, it'll show you the details if when you write your code, you're using documentation comments. And if you hover over a method.object, it'll do the same thing for within that. And when you're live typing, you've typed in object name dot, it will then show you the list of methods that are in that. So I'll demonstrate that. As I mentioned, the terminal has PST, which is the mode I use, the parallax serial terminal mode, TTY and ANSI modes. It also gives you access to the P2 monitor, if you like, and to tacos. And here's some differences that you have to be careful. In all of my testing, anything that I do, I will then save and then go into Propeller 2 and load it and make sure I didn't do anything non-canon there. But you can have a local variable name that is the same as a global. I personally don't think this is good practice. It will warn you if you have a global variable and then you define a local with the same name, you'll get a little yellow warning on the local and it will say that it's hiding the global. So within the method where the local was defined, it will use the local. If you use the global name in another method, then it will use the global value. It can be confusing. Again, I would never do that, but it is allowed here. You can mix integer and floating point with just the standard operators. And you obviously you have to use trunc and round to get back to integer, but you can mix things and it works fine. The bytecode listing is shown in the F8 thing window, in the F8 information window. We talked about this. You can make it case sensitive if you like. There are a lot of things, and I think Marco has readily, acknowledged this. He's been watching what Eric is doing with spin tool or flex prop rather, and he's been adding and liberating features. In fact, this one he came right out loud and said, "No, I borrowed this from flex spin." So you can do C style, the pound if def kind of things within spin. So technically, again, I think as in flex prop, you can write a program if you do, if you use the preprocessor directives and make it work on a P1 or a P2. So long as if you have an object, so for example, and he showed this in one of his examples, my version of full duplex serial, I have a P1 and a P2 version that have all the same method names, and basically the API is the same for both. So if you've done that, you could have a program that will run on either device, so long as the features are available on both devices. Another thing that I like, and I hope becomes kind of canon, is something Eric has done and I've used in Python. You have default values for methods, for parameters and methods. I found this by accident. It is a feature that it kind of hit me when I was doing my testing, but you don't have to use empty parentheses on methods that don't take parameters. And that bit me when I was going back into Propeller tool and trying to recompile something. And
the reason we have the parentheses is so that we can have variable methods, right? So we know that they're talking about a method using this variable as opposed to the variable.
Yeah, so, in fact, I was one of the people that when you asked about that, I advocated for it. I like that because it makes it very, especially with my style, I make everything lowercase except constants, my defined constants. So it can sometimes be tricky to tell what's a variable versus what's a method call. And so I did ask Marco about this, if he could add a feature, a strict feature, where if that was enabled, it would require empty parentheses on spin2 methods that don't require parameters.
But does he support method parameters then?
I don't know what you mean by that, Chip.
Well, we can use a variable which has a pointer in it to act as a indirect method pointer, right?
To be honest with you, I don't know, but I suspect he can, because when he did this, he said his process was to reverse engineer what was coming out of Propeller tool. Even after having the source code for the interpreter, he said it was easier just to reverse engineer it. So code that is canon for the Propeller that will run in Peanut or Propeller tool should run fine in spin tools. And if it isn't, this is one of those things where, again, as I found, when I found little tiny things, like for example, he didn't have the reboot keyword for the P1, and I had an old program that I tried to run through it that used reboot. And he's been very, very responsive. When something comes up that doesn't match what the Parallax tool does, he's been very, very cool with correcting it. He also has this has come up a couple of times where you don't have to use the keyword constant in spin 1 programs. He folds constants automatically where he can.
Right.
So there are some differences. There's some nice differences. In my version of a perfect world, Chip and Eric and Marco get together and have lunch and talk about an API so that everybody's tool works like everybody's tool, and then that way we have choices. I mean, that's a great thing about the Propeller. I'm always telling stories. I had a conversation a few years ago with a guy who was putting together a team to build props for a new Star Trek movie. And he called and he said, "Look, we know you're a Propeller guy, but we'd like you on the team. Do you mind programming the PIC with PIC Basic?" And I said, "Okay, I've done it, but it started out a conversation, and he said, "Why do you like the Propeller so much?" Because he didn't like spin. And I said, "Well, okay, if you don't like spin, that's fine. You have choices. You can program in spin, in basic, in C. You can even program in fourth." And what was really interesting is that he got very excited because of the fourth opportunity. The fourth is used a lot in industrial control kind of things, and camera control is a form of industrial control. So there are a lot of companies in Hollywood that use fourth to control cameras to do things. And so he was very excited about that. Sadly, the movie never happened because a young actor was killed in an accident. So there's no more Star Trek movies. But this was the J.J. Abrams Star Trek version. And we never got to work together. But the great thing about the Propeller that I was pointing out is we have lots of choices. So here, you know, we have another choice, because we know that you know, I'm surprised. See, I'm going to make a joke, so forgive me if it's bad, but I can see Jeff on the screen, but I know that if he turned his chair 90 degrees, he would be invisible because he's stretched so thin. Okay, good. So the joke landed. Yeah, and so, but you know, there is a comfort. We're all comfortable with tools, and this is, like I said, it's a great kind of piece in between where Propeller tool is, and you know what's happening with VSC, and you know, either whether it's using the Peanut compiler or FlexProp, and you know, this one's very, very beginner friendly. And the big thing is cross-platform. It looks and works the same across all operating systems. So I think that that's really good for the Propeller community, because there's no reason for, you know, people can't say, well, geez, you know, Propeller tool only runs on Windows. Well, now we have, you know, another option, I should say, that runs. And obviously for people that are very hardcore, I say this with all the love that is intended, you know, the wonk types like Stephen and, you know, and others, you know, VSC is a really good tool. For beginners, though, this might be another place to suggest, hey, this will get you up and going really quickly. And Marco is also going multi-language. Now, I'm only talking about Spin here, but he has C working for the P1. The other thing that he did, because I had asked him very, very early, I mean, this is only going on a little more than a year. I'd said, hey, you know, can you make it so that I can choose which compiler to use? That way I can use the Peanut compiler and I know my code is canon. And so he hasn't got to that yet, but he did move the compiler element from inside the code to a command line tool. So that is going in that direction. This is why I think, you know, it's kind of nice because it's written in Java. In fact, this is open source and the files are up on GitHub. So there is a tool that will run across all operating systems. I guess Eric says the same thing, you know, in that it will compile Spin bytecodes that are compatible with the Spin interpreter. In fact, he downloads the Spin the normal Spin interpreter, whatever the latest one is, that gets included in the download. I think that's the end of this stuff. Oh, that's just my reminder things. I'll go over and show the tool. So this is the interface in Windows. You know, it's really easy. That there are as Stephen was demonstrating, if I put something, if I add.
We're not seeing it yet, John.
Sorry?
We're not seeing it yet. We only see your slide.
It didn't switch to my, sorry. When I did the share, I probably didn't share my computer. Hang on, let me do to.
I only say that because I didn't want to miss what you're showing. Thank you.
Can you see the IDE now?
Yes, I can. Looks good.
Okay. So it's a little tricky to see in this color scheme, but I put in a local variable X here. There's a little yellow line under it, and there's one here too. This is in the annotations. So if I hover over that, if I click on it, it'll take me to the line. And if I hover over either, again, it'll say, hey, that's not used. It says the same thing here. If I do, again, this is another, I should have remembered the variable name you used, Stephen. If I do put in a variable that's not defined at all, then we get a red underline there. We also get the annotation here, and it says that's an undefined symbol. And so, in fact, if you try to run it, it will scream, hey, you can't run this program because it has errors. So it won't even attempt to do anything because it's constantly compiling and letting you know. Now, if we get rid of that, it will go away. As Stephen was demonstrating, if we do a hover over, this will show to tell you what the parameter names are. It might not be as detailed as what Stephen's doing, but it is helpful. Now, I don't have any documentation comments in this particular method, but if I hover over this one, then it does show the documentation comments. And if I enter if I do something new with say term, type in TERM dot, now I can see all of the method names that are in that. And if I want to know what something is, I can click on it and it'll show the stuff. If I double click it, it will bring it in, and then I can just fill in the parameters. So it's really quite nice. Again, taking advantage of the library creator using documentation comments the way I think Jeff and Chip had intended them. That's really all there is to. I guess I could show you in the preferences. As I was saying, you can do a dark theme. This may be easier for everybody to see. I don't know. So there, it does do theming. I know a lot of people like this particular mode. I don't, but that's, again, it's choices. They are there. So if we run this, and I have a enter key, and there we go. So it's Propeller tool with some nice new features and things that we're getting used to, with, again, some of the same things that Stephen has added to VSC to make it easier there, same kind of things here. And so it just makes people more productive, long term. I'm hoping that Marco will allow this, since they are separate tools, if you think about it, there's the IDE and then there's the compiler is separated. Maybe this would be available to use for Peanut or for FlexProp, and even go multilingual. Like I said, he does support C for the P1. I've not tried it because I'm not a C programmer, but it's another choice. So I know I tend to run long, so I'm going to stop now so that I don't. Oh, so let me just point out, I think Ken pointed this out too. There is this thread in the forums. Did that show up, or do I need to share this one?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, so there is this thread in the forums that is running that has the comments, and when people have questions, or that, so you can go there. The program is on his website. Like I said, it does need Java installed, but chances are people already have that. And for now, it's just a matter of unzipping an archive and then pointing to it. This would be probably very easy for somebody as capable as Jeff to create an installer for, to go boom, very super easy. But it's a nice, very comfortable tool. And I hope that, again, if we can couple this with the work that Eric is doing, what Chip is doing, I think it just gives us another great thing for the community to have, especially for newcomers. Again, the people that are in the stratosphere intellectually and programming wise, like Stephen, VSC is probably a better tool. But for getting people going, you don't want to burden them with getting started. This is a very, very easy startup.
Yeah. Setting up the VSC to work in a sensible way is kind of there isn't even really a sensible way, but it has the features like that shows it like a thing. That's why the people use it. But if you just want to start out, it's probably confusing more than anything. So I'd probably consider what you're saying is very true.
Well, and you've participated in the thread and given some feedback to Marco that I think he dealt with.
Is the issue fixed with the open the file things and then it just shows C files? Might have to download like the newest version.
I don't know. You may want to. There is a new version as of the other day that I don't think he announced. I was I have a work project that is coming up soon, as I have the thing Chip doesn't want to hear me say, the flash
File system.
whatever.
Flash file system.
What I've been doing is, since that program we did a prototype on the P1. So what I've been doing is going through and making sure that I have P1 and P2 code that match. And I was redoing my XP object the other day, and everything ran fine inside Propeller tool on P1 and P2. And then I moved over to Spin tools to give it a try, because it does do unused code removal. I mean, that's another feature I didn't comment on. If a method's not being used, it doesn't get put into the image. So you have smaller downloads when you are doing that. Excuse me, and I should have done this on F8. So this is where Eric has this feature in the file menu, I think, on FlexProp. So you can see the listing for, I don't quite understand all this stuff, but it's there for the advanced people. And then but you can see the interpreter. I noticed that this, and I saw this size, and then I went to Peanut and it was the same size. And so I reached out to Marco and I said, oh, are you just using, and he said, of course. Yeah. So that's why everything has to match it, because he is downloading, whatever the latest version of the interpreter that Chip provides, that's what's getting downloaded with the project.
Oh my, the portal file open issue has magically evaporated, it seems.
Your audio is really overmodulated, Ada. So is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Oh, my audio is too hot. Oh no, it's the alpha mixer acting up again. Is it not?
But I think you said that Marco fixed the problem you were having.
Yeah, is it better now?
Okay, little. Anyway, it's that's much better.
Oh, it's just the alpha mixer resetting its value every time the computer reboots.
At any rate, this is a nice IDE, runs cross-platform, and I think, as again, and I keep bringing up Eric, but I think it's a fair point. When the community started using FlexProp, and they ran into things, they said, hey, here's an issue, and Eric jumped on it and fixed it. Marco is doing the same thing. So this gives us another tool, and choices are always good. And, with the Propeller, we have, in my opinion, which doesn't matter for much, but I think it's the best microcontroller going, and having really nice tools. And as we develop more libraries for it, that's the big thing, is getting, libraries fleshed out. I think we'll see more and more traffic, because it's just such a nice device. And Marco has done a really great job. So those of you that haven't tried it, please do, because it's a small program. Give it a try. And I think you may like it if you're, a fan of Propeller tools, much as I am. Jeff knows I am, because he knows how many times I've asked him for updates and features, because he knows how much I like it. And, so Marco has done a really good job, I think, because he's a Linux user natively. So he wanted Propeller tool in Linux, so he made one. And again, using the Eclipse SWT toolkit, he was able to make it cross-platform. And it's, again, I like it quite a lot.
Thanks, John. Yeah, you have been giving Jeff input for 25 years.
Yeah, we go back a while. So.
Right.
I pasted in the chat the link to get this, which you could have seen in John's presentation. And also I pasted a link to ability to give Johnny Mac a coffee or a new car, whatever you want to do, or a new computer, because who knows, maybe his code will start winding up in the new OBEX again. Look forward to
well,
that.
and also, Ken, I should say on Marco's GitHub page, he has a link to a Ko-fi account, and it's not what's the standard people use, the Patreon, but he has another pay gateway. So again, Marco's been around the community. He's kind of quiet, but he always has good input. He's helped me many times over the years, and this is, again, I think this is a nice gift to the community. So between this and FlexProp and the work Stephen Moraco is doing, we have lots of great tool choices on any platform.
So are you using this tool full time then with your coding?
I
Balance between.
I haven't released any production code with it yet because so what I started to say is over the weekend, I found an error with it, code that ran fine through Propeller tool and the P2 would not work in Spin tool. So I sent the archive to Marco and he found he found the reason. He sent me he posted an update and it works fine. So I am slowly getting there. With the laser tag, our main laser tag code, which right now is running on the P1, we can't compile with Propeller tool. And so we have to use BSC or BST, whatever, bread spin tools, because it does the unused code removal. That's quite old, BST. Now it works fine, but I'm wanting to use this. And then again, with all of the stuff that, Jeff has to do that have nothing to do with Propeller tool, this is a really good choice, I think, for the community. So I'm hoping, Ken, that you and Chip and the rest of Parallax will be supportive of Marco's efforts the way you've supported Stephen and Eric, because those are community members that are doing good things that we all benefit from.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the way to start that too, by us getting familiar with it. Now we can support him too, for certain.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, it's a day for tools. Somebody get out the backhoe.
For your project that only works with BST, have you tried the FlexSpin bytecode mode? That I've recently fixed a bunch of issues by just going through a bunch of old projects and compiling them, and it generally works better than BST in terms of just crunching down the code.
I haven't yet, but I will. Now we haven't had a code release on the laser tag for a while because we're looking to transition the laser tag weapons from P1 to P2. So the code that is in the field now is probably the last we'll do on the P1. But I'll try it just as an experiment. Again, I knew BST worked because this issue came up 4 or 5 years ago with the laser tag. But choices are good.
Experience, I've made it generate the best code compared to BST and the OpenSpin and the Homespun. The problem with OpenSpin is that sometimes when you tell it to remove unused methods, it just doesn't work and it explodes.
Yeah,
so there wasn't really a good optimizing compiler that wasn't like abandonware. So.
Okay, I haven't done a comparison, but I'll do both BST and all three now. I'll do them just so we see. Again, BST I want to get away from because Brad has been out of the community for many years, and the program works and it won't stop working. As you point out, you're doing improvements and Marco same thing. So. It's better to use the newer tools. So again, and Chip, as I pointed out, all of this is done in Java and he's open sourced it. So the compiler that Marco has written for Spin is available and it's open source. So, we talked about having a cross-platform bytecode thing, notwithstanding what Ada's done with FlexProp. So here's another opportunity.
Yeah, no, I see. Everything is just so complex when you get into it, though.
It really is. I got very excited about this and I thought, I'm going to go look at how to create programs in SWT. And that, it was like being punched in the face. There's just a lot of stuff. And
that's just a Java thing. You just start creating a program and just massive amounts of just nonsense that you have to write.
I guess that's an opinion, and I would tend to agree with it. Just a lot of stuff. Marco seems to have his head on really straight, and
I
you know,
mean,
he uses it in his
understanding it is a
programming
thing, but
life.
it's-
You know, he's a consultant. He gets, you know, he writes
you have
code for
to
a living.
get it into your brain.
So he, you know, I trust that he's doing what he thinks is best. And again, from my point of view, it's another great option for all of us in the community.
Certainly.
Okay, so thanks, John. We could move into just general questions and idle chit chat at this point if we want to. And I'll probably stop the
You want to see something silly?
you ask let's maybe.
Maybe. That's a good one.
I'll stop
Oh
the
no, my
recording and
video
then
is not
we'll let it go. Okay,
working
so
because it's